is talking about volunteers and volunteering, or what the Bible calls acts of service and good deeds. So what is a volunteer? The Oxford English Dictionary says a volunteer is any person who works for an organization or cause without being paid. Volunteers are always in demand everywhere, in churches and hospitals and schools, in scouting and youth athletic leagues, in museums and art galleries, you name it. There are always openings. That not getting paid part makes it a little harder to recruit. Wanted hard workers, odd hours, no pay. But the benefits are heavenly. I have some actual recruiting slogans here to share with you that failed to win the hearts of real-life volunteers. Ready? One company gave away bumper stickers that read, "Volunteers do it for free." One made an attempt at humor by handing out t-shirts that said, "Volunteers are good for nothing." And then there was this poster on a college campus, "Volunteer!" What else are you going to do with that liberal arts degree? But listen, never, never, never underestimate a volunteer. As someone once pointed out, the Ark was built by volunteers, and the Titanic was all hired labor. But seriously, volunteers work without being paid, not because their work is worth less, but because their contributions are priceless. You have to wonder why people volunteer, right? But there are as many reasons as there are people. Here are the top 10, according to the internet. No, it's always true. 1, because it's the right thing or the Christian thing to do. 2, because they seek recognition or praise. 3, they have a desire to give back. 4, they want to bring about social change. 5, because of a sense of belonging or appreciation for the organization. 6, out of a desire to help others or to make a difference. 7, to give their own lives purpose or meaning. 8, to meet new people and do new things. 9, because someone asked them to do it. And 10, because no one else would do it. Do any of these sound familiar? Did I hit on any of yours or all of them? One young man told me that he volunteered because his mother made him do it. He said, "I didn't so much volunteer as I was voluntold." How that worked. But whether your motives are purely altruistic or not, volunteering is good for you. Not like eating your vegetables. I mean, it turns out the act of volunteering is actually good for you. According to researchers at the London School of Economics, people who volunteer on a regular basis are not only healthier, mentally, physically, and emotionally, they are overwhelmingly happier as well. In fact, 94% of the participants in this study reported feeling happier or more content a full 12 months after they volunteered for something. A full 12 months later, 94% of them still had that helper's high. And get this, the more time they spent volunteering, the happier they claimed to be. But here's the really cool part. Giving time to religious institutions had the greatest impact of all. No kidding. People who volunteered at their church or synagogue experienced the greatest rise in happiness of all. I'm sorry, I just have to say that again. People who volunteered at their church or synagogue experienced the greatest increase in happiness of all. sense of purpose in the world, lowers stress, depression, and heart disease, and lessens chronic pain. Man, if you could get this in a bottle, you'd run down to the drugstore today. And these effects hold true for young and old, male and female, able-bodied persons, and persons with disabilities across every racial, cultural, and economic line. That's just amazing. It's like human beings are hardwired to help each other. It's like we're made that way. Like we're intended, designed, like we're supposed to give ourselves away in service. Jesus said, whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all. Then he took a little child and put it among them. And taking it in his arms, he said to them, whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not just me, but the one who sent me. Our children's ministry programs here are very, very important to us. And the presence of so many children in our church and school is a sacred trust, and one that I do not take lightly, and I know that you don't either. So in addition to recognizing our volunteers today, we'll also celebrate our Sunday school teachers and our Christian education leaders, the people who make our children feel welcome and loved here week after week. And it isn't always easy to do, but the lessons that are learned in the Sunday school classroom are some of the most profound in life. I'll never forget Kyle's first visit to Sunday school. When his parents signed him in, the teacher noticed that he only had one hand. So she silently prayed that none of the other children would say or do anything to embarrass him. And none of them did. But when the class was nearly over, the teacher began her closing routine. Okay, let's all build our churches, she said, placing her hands together. Here's the church, and here's the steeple. And suddenly she was aware of the horror that she had done the very thing she had feared the children would do. She later told me that she stood in awkward silence for just a moment. But quickly, the little girl sitting next to Kyle reached out with one of her hands and laced her fingers with his and said, look, we're building our church together. We are building our church together. All people. Our children sang, reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place if you can. What the song doesn't say is that God is most alive in us when we are giving ourselves away. That we are never closer to heaven than when we are reaching out to help someone else. God's love, God's Spirit comes alive in us, and that's an amazing thing. There is no better thing than that. This church has stood at the heart of this community for more than 5 generations, reaching out, touching people, making a difference. But none of this would be possible without our amazing musicians and our volunteers, without people willing to give of themselves for the sake of others, for the sake of the church. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to some of the finest folks I know. First, I want to thank God for our musicians. No worship service could ever be complete without them. We have some of the finest musicians anywhere, and I'm going to ask them to please stand up so we can show our appreciation. And now I'm going to really embarrass you. I need you to come right over here and stand right here in front. Are there members of our trustees present? If so, please stand up. Come join our Executive and Finance Committee members right over here. Do we have any deacons in the house today? If we have deacons, would you please stand up? Would you come forward here by the piano? Members of the Christian Education Board, are you present today? If so, please come forward. Stand in front. Missions Board. Here's one of my favorites. Search Committee. Anyone on the Search Committee, please stand up, come forward. PTO or school. Anyone volunteers for the school? Last but not least, are there any coffee hour volunteers? Any workers that aren't on any boards or committees, but you know who you are, and God knows who you are. If you have volunteered in this church in the last year, you are duty bound now to identify yourselves and to come forward. You know, that's the other thing, is we have a lot of volunteers right now in the kitchen. So I want you to take a look at the people whose hands and feet are constantly working to make this possible for us. And I want you guys to look out there and see who you can recruit to help you. But I also have asked someone to help me pass out something to show my appreciation. I have a certificate of appreciation for each of our volunteers and musicians today, and a silver cross. It says, "You make a difference. Thank you for your service to our church and community." I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I can't give you enough gold that you are worth, but I can let you know that we appreciate what you're doing. And all of you out there who didn't stand up, you know who you are. We love you too. And while they are passing out those last things, I just want to tell you that for musicians, you know, when David built the tabernacle and gave the Ark of the Covenant a resting place, a place to finally call home, the first thing he did was hire the best musicians in the land and fill the tabernacle with music. Because David knew, what all of us know, that music gets beyond and behind our words and past all of our defenses and opens up a place in our heart that God can enter. So I'm grateful for the gift of music in this place, for the gift of all of these men and women who have given of themselves, and for all of you. So would you join me one last time in showing our appreciation?